What's up, everybody? It's Matt with a brand new episode of Remember That? A series where I talk about shows or movies that may have been forgotten over the years, regardless if they were good, bad, or downright awful. I know it's been a very long time since I posted a new video, so I thought it would be a perfect time to talk about my favorite childhood show, Radio Active. For anyone who hasn't watched this show, Radio Active was a Canadian sitcom on YTV. It was based on a French-Canadian show called Radio en Feu. It was a show about 5 high school students from Upper Redwood High who host a radio show called Radio Active. It ran for 3 seasons and a total of 78 episodes. The main characters were George Goodwin, the dumb, goofy character who loved comic books, card games, and all things nerdy; Tanya Panda, the quiet girl who enjoyed horoscopes and animals; Morgan Lee, the smart, hardworking character who was sort of the leader of the group; Sarah, who was Morgan's younger, annoying sister; Ethan St. John, the suck-up, and the guy always looking for a new scheme to make money; and Kevin Calvin, the funny, jock type, who was my personal favorite character. Ethan and Kevin were later replaced in season 2 and 3 with Roger Richards and Blair Resnicki. Radioactive also starred Noella Tull, their crazy teacher that no one liked and always gave out detentions, and Mr. Noseworthy, the goofy, laid-back, hippie-like vice principal in charge of discipline, who ironically never enjoyed disciplining the students. Radioactive was my favorite show when I was younger, and it still is one of my favorites. Up until a few weeks ago, there was no way to watch the episodes, except small clips on YouTube. It was such a small show in Canada that barely anyone knows or talks about it. Fortunately, I recently discovered that a streaming service called Tubi TV streams all of the episodes. I loved the show's low-budget look, and how they got around the fact that the entire cast was no more than about 8 people. In some scenes, they would pretend that there were hundreds of students in the hall by using sound effects. Something about it just made it way funnier. So when they started adding extras in the show in the later seasons, it didn't feel right. I can't talk about Radioactive without talking about my 2 favorite characters, Kevin and George. Kevin, played by Vic Sahay, was, in my opinion, so much better than the rest of the others. Not that the others were bad. However, Vic Sahay just brought what felt like his own personality, mannerisms, and comedic timing to the show that you just can't write on paper. He would add funny voices, facial expressions, and movements to his lines that made Kevin's character so much more hilarious. One example of this is when Mr. Noseworthy is teaching Kevin about etiquette for a date, and him trying to follow along and mimic Noseworthy is so funny.
Yes. Your Honor, would you do me?
It was really unfortunate that he left after only 1 season. George was another great character, played by actor Giancarlo Caltabiano. He was also the nice, caring character, even though he wasn't the smartest. He was known for his extremely blonde, spiky hair and playing card games. In an interview with You, Me, and YTV, Giancarlo said in real life he was a big board game and card game guy, which is why they made George the same. Years after Radioactive, Giancarlo Caltabiano left acting and opened up a board game shop in Montreal with his brother. I was actually fortunate enough to meet him, and we talked about Radioactive and fries with that. As I mentioned earlier, Kevin and Ethan were replaced in season 2 and 3 by Roger and Blair. Blair being the dumb jock, and Roger the smart, full of himself character. Both of these guys were very funny and had some great scenes. However, I felt the show took a bit of a drop in quality once Kevin and Ethan left. Personally, I found season 1 was much funnier with its jokes. It had a ton of adult humor even though it was meant for a younger audience. For example, this scene where Mr. Noseworthy is telling Kevin about all the famous people he interviewed in school when he was younger.
His name? Engelbert Humperdinck?
Noseworthy, watch your language. Someone might be listening.
I had to skip a day of school to meet with Mr. Humperdinck at the train station across town. The principal at the time, Mr. Titmeyer.
Mr. Noseworthy, please, watch it.
I got in a lot of trouble that day, but I knew that my devotion to the paper would pay off in the end, and indeed it did. Next week, I got an interview with none other than Joe Cocker.
Season 2 and 3 were both great, but in my opinion, just wasn't the same without Kevin. Some of the other actors went on to other big projects. Andrew Walker, who played Blair, has starred in many holiday Hallmark films. Vanessa Langes, who played Sarah, starred in Are You Afraid of the Dark, Popular Mechanics for Kids, and Glee. And Michael Yarmish, who played Ethan St. John, was known as the original voice of Arthur, and came back to play Arthur in the series finale. Radioactive was such a big part of my life growing up in the 90s, even though it was such a forgotten show. With shows like Breaker High and Student Bodies, I feel like Radioactive never gained the popularity it deserved. And if I had to rate the show, I would give it 5 Video 30s out of 5. Thank you for watching this episode of Remember That. I'm Matt, and if you'd like to see more of these videos, feel free to subscribe to the channel or leave a comment on other shows or movies I could review. And I'll see you later. Bye!